You primitive simians think you can challenge the might of the Galactic Concordat? Supreme Commander Zixtal's holographic form loomed over the United Earth Council chamber, mandibles clicking in what he probably thought was an intimidating manner. Your species hasn't even achieved viable quantum transmission yet. General Sarah Chen, Earth Defense Force Commander, didn't bother hiding her eye roll. After 15 years of military service and dealing with everything from rogue AI to first contact scenarios, she'd developed a finely tuned bullshit detector. Right now it was going off like a 4-alarm fire. Supreme Commander, she said, keeping her voice diplomatically neutral despite her growing urge to laugh. Perhaps we should discuss this like reasonable beings. Your ultimatum seems unnecessary. The alien's compound eyes flashed with bioluminescent indignation. Unnecessary? You dare? Your kind has been meddling in affairs beyond your comprehension. Our sensors detected your crude attempts at faster-than-light travel. Such technology is forbidden to non-member species. Sarah glanced at Dr. James Wong, head of the Quantum Physics Division, who was trying, and failing, to suppress a grin. They'd known this conversation was coming ever since their successful test of the Wong-Martinez drive 3 months ago. The fact that it had taken the Concordat this long to notice was, frankly, embarrassing for them. About that, Sarah said, leaning forward in her chair. We weren't attempting FTL travel. Do not insult my intelligence with denials. Our readings... We succeeded at FTL travel, she interrupted. 6 times, actually. Would have been 7, but Dave in engineering wanted an early lunch that day. The silence that followed was absolutely priceless. Zixtal's mandibles stopped mid-click. That is impossible, he finally managed. Your species only achieved spaceflight within the last century. You cannot have— Oh, but we did, Dr. Wong chimed in, practically bouncing in his seat. Want to know the best part? We didn't even use quantum mechanics. Well, not primarily. Turns out you can bend space-time pretty effectively with a really good understanding of gravity manipulation and a whole lot of coffee. The hologram flickered as Zixtal's composure visibly crumbled. This is unprecedented! The development timeline alone! Yeah, we tend to work fast when people tell us something's impossible, Sarah said. It's kind of our thing. Remember how you said we didn't have quantum transmission? Check your incoming feeds. On cue, the alien leader's eyes widened as data began flooding into his systems. Data transmitted instantly across light years using Earth's brand new quantum entanglement network. The same network they'd built in secret while the Concordat was busy writing strongly worded warnings about humanity's concerning rate of technological advancement. This changes nothing, Zixtal declared, though his voice had lost some of its earlier authority. The Concordat's decision is final. You will cease all advanced research immediately, or face the consequences. Sarah shared a knowing look with her colleagues before addressing the increasingly flustered alien. Supreme Commander, we've been polite so far, but let me be clear. Humanity doesn't respond well to threats. We particularly don't respond well to threats from civilizations that think they can bully us into submission because they got to space first. She stood, straightening her uniform. You've given us an ultimatum? Fine. Here's ours. The Concordat can either accept humanity as equals and begin diplomatic relations, or you can try to enforce your demands. But before you decide, you should know that while you were busy composing this little speech, we finished testing our planetary defense grid. You're bluffing, Zixtal said, but there was uncertainty in his voice. Am I? Run a deep scan of Earth's orbital space. Go ahead. I'll wait. The alien's compound eyes dimmed briefly as he accessed his sensors. When they brightened again, there was something new in them. Fear. Impossible, he whispered. Those energy readings. The shield capacity. Fun fact about humans, Sarah said, allowing herself a small smile. We have this saying, necessity is the mother of invention. But you know what's an even better motivator? Someone telling us we can't do something. So when your Concordat started making noise about keeping humanity in our place, well, let's just say a lot of scientists took that personally. The Council will hear of this, Zixtal declared. We're counting on it. Oh, and Supreme Commander? The quantum transmission I mentioned earlier? It wasn't just data we sent. Right about now, every member world of the Concordat should be receiving a complete technical package detailing everything we've developed in the last decade. Free of charge, no strings attached. You're giving away advanced technology? To everyone? The alien leader seemed genuinely confused now. Why would you do such a thing? Dr. Wong laughed. Because that's another thing about humans, Commander. When we solve a problem, we like to share the solution. Keeping knowledge locked away behind artificial barriers, that's not our style. We're not interested in playing political games or maintaining artificial technological hierarchies, Sarah added. We want to explore the galaxy, make friends, trade ideas, and help everyone advance together. But if you force us to prove ourselves... Her expression hardened. Well, you've already seen how that goes. The hologram flickered again as Zixtal struggled to process this complete upheaval of everything he'd expected from this conversation. I must consult with the council. You do that, Sarah said. We'll be here, probably inventing a few new impossible things while we wait. Dave's got this interesting theory about pocket dimensions he's been wanting to test. After the transmission ended, the chamber erupted in laughter that had been held back for far too long. Dr. Wong wiped tears from his eyes as he pulled up the incoming data streams showing the chaos their technology release was causing across Concordat space. Think they'll take the diplomatic option? He asked. Sarah grinned. They'd better. Otherwise, they'll find out about the other projects we didn't mention. Speaking of which, how's that artificial gravity research coming along? Finished it last week, actually. Turns out the solution was pretty simple once we stopped thinking in terms of mass manipulation and started considering space-time as more of a suggestion than a rule. Of course it was, Sarah said, shaking her head in amusement. You know, sometimes I think the universe made physics so complicated just to see how creative we'd get in breaking it. The next few hours were filled with reports from across Concordat space as various civilizations began implementing Earth's freely shared technologies. Some were outraged at the upheaval of the established order. Others were delighted by the sudden leap forward in their capabilities. But all of them had to acknowledge one undeniable truth. Humanity had changed the game entirely. 3 days later, when the Concordat Council formally requested to open diplomatic relations, this time as equals, Sarah made sure to have coffee and donuts ready for the meeting. After all, if they were going to discuss humanity's place in the galaxy, they might as well do it over one of Earth's greatest contributions to civilization. As she watched the alien diplomats cautiously sample their first taste of caffeine and sugar, Sarah couldn't help but think that sometimes the best way to win a fight was to make it unnecessary in the first place. Though she had to admit, the looks on their faces when they realized just how thoroughly humanity had outmaneuvered them. That was pretty satisfying too. Is that all? One of the alien representatives asked after they'd finished reviewing Earth's capabilities. Sarah just smiled. For now. The alien's nervous swallow was all the confirmation she needed that they'd finally gotten the message. Never tell humanity something is impossible. We take it as a challenge, and we really enjoy proving people wrong. 2 months after the Concordat's diplomatic capitulation, Sarah found herself in what had become a familiar situation, explaining humanity to increasingly bewildered aliens. So let me understand this correctly, said Ambassador Cathari, her crystalline form refracting light in patterns that indicated deep confusion. Your species developed artificial gravity, quantum communication, and faster-than-light travel. Because you were bored? Not exactly, Sarah replied, stirring her coffee. They were sitting in the newly constructed terrestrial Concordat Exchange Center, a massive space station that served as neutral ground for ongoing diplomatic relations. We developed those things because they were interesting problems to solve. The fact that we weren't supposed to be able to do it just made it more fun. The ambassador's crystalline matrices shifted in what Sarah had learned was their equivalent of a headshake. But the computational resources alone, the research facilities required. Oh, that's the best part, Dr. Wong interjected, looking up from his tablet where he'd been annotating some theoretical physics papers from one of the Concordat's more innovative member species. Most of our breakthroughs happened in garages, university labs, and this one really productive weekend at a hackathon in Milwaukee. Turns out you don't need massive facilities when you've got caffeine. Peer review and a really good crowdfunding platform. Cathari's confusion patterns intensified. Crowd funding. Yeah, you know, when lots of people contribute small amounts of money to support projects they believe in, Sarah explained. The Wong Martinez Drive, initially funded by a mix of research grants and about 30,000 people, who each donated the equivalent of a nice dinner to the project. They all got cool t-shirts that said, "I helped break physics, and all I got was this lousy faster-than-light drive." The ambassador's crystalline form briefly clouded with static, their species equivalent of a stunned blink. Your people made jokes about fundamentally altering the nature of space-time? Of course, Dr. Wong said. If you can't laugh about casually violating what you thought were the immutable laws of physics, what can you laugh about? Before Cathari could process this, another figure joined their table, Dr. Aisha Patel, head of the newly formed Xenocultural Exchange Program. She was carrying what looked like a children's science textbook and wearing an expression that suggested she'd just discovered something either hilarious or terrifying. With humans, it was often hard to tell the difference. "You're not going to believe this," she said, dropping into an empty chair. "I've been reviewing educational materials from various concordate worlds, trying to understand how different species approach scientific education. Want to know what I found?" "Do tell," Sarah said, recognizing the gleam in Aisha's eyes that usually preceded either a groundbreaking discovery or a terrible pun. "They don't teach theoretical physics to anyone under the equivalent of graduate-level education. It's considered too complex and abstract for younger minds to grasp." Dr. Wong nearly choked on his coffee. "But what about all those physics for kids videos? The ones where we explain quantum entanglement using cat memes?" "Exactly," Aisha said, tapping the textbook she'd brought. "I showed some of those to the Concordate's Education Council. They were horrified. Apparently they think we're somehow damaging our children by exposing them to advanced concepts early." Cathari's crystalline form rippled with concern. "Are you not? Surely such complex theories require fully developed cognitive structures to properly comprehend." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. "Ambassador, have you ever tried to keep a human child from learning something they're interested in? It's like trying to stop a black hole with a paper umbrella. Kids are naturally curious. They ask questions like, 'Why is the sky blue?' And before you know it, you're explaining Rayleigh's scattering to a 5-year-old. "And they understand?" Cathari asked, clearly skeptical. "Well, they understand the version we tell them at that age," Dr. Wong explained. "Then they understand a more complex version a few years later, and an even more detailed version after that. We call it scaffolding, building up understanding layer by layer. By the time they reach university, many of them already have an intuitive grasp of concepts that your education system doesn't introduce until advanced studies." Aisha nodded enthusiastically. "It's not just physics either. You should see what happens when kids get interested in dinosaurs. 6-year-olds casually dropping words like Pachycephalosaurus and explaining convergent evolution to their playmates." The ambassador's form clouded again. This explains much about your species' rapid advancement. But surely not all humans are capable of understanding such concepts." "You'd be surprised," Sarah said. "We have this amazing thing called the Internet, where people explain complicated ideas using everything from detailed mathematical proofs to interpretive dance. Someone once explained string theory using cat videos, and somehow it made perfect sense." "Which reminds me," Dr. Wong added. "Have you seen the latest from that physics YouTuber who explains quantum mechanics using medieval art memes? Their video on quantum tunneling using paintings of knights running into walls has 10 million views." Cathari's crystalline structure emitted a frequency that their universal translators interpreted as a mix of disbelief and amusement. "Your species truly is unlike any we have encountered before. You treat the fundamental forces of the universe as if they were toys to be played with." "Not toys," Sarah corrected gently. "More like puzzles to be solved. Every human child knows the joy of figuring something out for the first time. We just never grew out of it." "And now?" the ambassador asked. "What puzzles will humanity solve next?" Sarah shared a knowing look with her colleagues. "Well, some of our scientists have been looking at the data you shared about parallel dimensions." "Oh no." Cathari's translation came through with clear alarm. "Oh yes," Dr. Wong grinned. "Turns out your researchers might have missed a few interesting possibilities. We've got a team in Geneva who think they've figured out how to—" He was interrupted by the sudden appearance of a holographic message floating above their table. The symbol of the Earth Defense Force pulsed urgently. "Speaking of interesting possibilities," Sarah said, standing up as she read the message, "it seems we've got a situation that requires immediate attention. Ambassador, if you'll excuse us." Cathari's form shifted to indicate acknowledgement. "Of course. Though, may I ask what sort of situation requires such urgent response?" Sarah's grin was just a bit too wide to be entirely professional. "Remember those parallel dimension researchers I mentioned? Apparently they got their calculations right on the first try. We're going to need to requisition some extra coffee for this one." As they hurried toward the station's command center, Dr. Wong was already pulling up theoretical models on his tablet, while Aisha began drafting a preliminary first contact protocol for potential parallel dimension inhabitants. Just another day at the office for humanity's representatives to the galaxy. Behind them, they could hear Cathari transmitting an urgent message to the Concordate Council. The first few words were clearly audible. "They're doing it again." The command center of the terrestrial Concordat Exchange Center was already buzzing with activity when Sarah, Dr. Wong, and Dr. Patel arrived. Holographic displays showed a kaleidoscope of sensor readings, most of which seemed to be trying to measure things that shouldn't technically exist. "Status report," Sarah demanded, stepping into the organized chaos with practiced ease. Dr. Elena Martinez, the other half of the Wong-Martinez drive's namesake, looked up from her console with an expression that somehow managed to convey both scientific excitement and mild terror. "Remember how we theorized that parallel dimensions might occasionally develop areas of quantum resonance with our own universe?" "You mean the thing the Concordat said was impossible last week?" Sarah asked. "That's the one," Elena confirmed. "Well, turns out we were right, and wrong, and possibly both simultaneously, depending on which dimensional reference frame you're using." Dr. Wong practically teleported to her station. "You've achieved quantum resonance?" "Better," Elena said, expanding a holographic model that showed what appeared to be a tear in the fabric of reality itself. "We've achieved stable quantum resonance, as in we can maintain it indefinitely, as in we may have accidentally created a permanent bridge between parallel universes." Sarah pinched the bridge of her nose. "Define accidentally." "Well, we were running some preliminary tests on quantum field manipulation, using the new insights we gained from studying the Concordat's dimensional theory papers. Nothing major, just some basic probability wave functions." Elena paused, looking slightly sheepish. "And then Jerry from maintenance spilled his coffee on one of the quantum harmonizers." "Of course he did," Sarah sighed. And it turns out caffeine has some really interesting effects on quantum probability fields that nobody could have predicted. The spill created a cascade effect through the harmonizer's containment system, which somehow synchronized with the natural quantum fluctuations in a parallel dimension and, well, she gestured to another display, which showed a massive ethereal doorway that had appeared in the middle of the Geneva research facility. Through it, they could see what appeared to be another Geneva research facility, albeit one where everything was subtly different. "Have we made contact with the other side?" Dr. Patel asked, already pulling up preliminary xenodiplomacy protocols on her tablet. "Sort of," Elena said. "They appeared to be running a similar experiment on their side. The only difference is that in their universe, it was tea that got spilled instead of coffee." Sarah stared at the display for a long moment. "Are you telling me that humanity's first contact with a parallel universe hinges on the difference between coffee and tea?" "The implications for quantum probability theory are fascinating," Dr. Wong mused. "The cosmic significance of beverage choice in determining universal constants." "Focus, people," Sarah interrupted. "What kind of contact have we had so far?" Elena pulled up a communication log. "Mostly scientific data exchange. Their version of me is just as excited about this as I am. Though," she paused, looking uncertain, "there is one slight complication." "Just one?" Sarah asked dryly. "In their universe, the Concordat doesn't exist. Instead, there's something called the Galactic Cooperative, which is apparently much more open to technological advancement and scientific cooperation." "Let me guess," Sarah said. "They want to compare notes." "More than that," Elena replied. "They're proposing a joint research initiative. Their humanity and their Galactic Cooperative want to work with our humanity and our Concordat to study the nature of parallel dimensions and possibly establish permanent diplomatic relations between universes." Before Sarah could respond, the command center's doors slid open to admit Ambassador Cathari, whose crystalline form was practically strobing with agitation. "General Chen," the ambassador's translated voice carried clear notes of distress. "The Concordat Council demands an immediate explanation for the dimensional anomaly detected in your Geneva facility." Sarah turned to face the ambassador with what she hoped was a reassuring smile. "Good news, Ambassador. Humanity has successfully established first contact with a parallel universe. Even better news. We've already confirmed that the laws of physics work slightly differently there, which means whole new areas of scientific discovery to explore." Cathari's form flickered in what might have been resignation. "And the bad news? Well, that depends on your perspective," Dr. Wong said cheerfully. "How does the Concordat feel about having to negotiate with two different versions of humanity simultaneously?" The ambassador's crystalline structure briefly dimmed, as if trying to process this new reality. "You mean to tell me that there are now two human civilizations we must deal with?" "Oh, it gets better," Elena chimed in. "According to the readings we're getting, this might just be the first of many potential parallel universes we could contact." each with their own version of humanity, their own scientific discoveries, their own unique approaches to solving supposedly impossible problems. And, Sarah added, unable to resist, their own preferred caffeinated beverages. Cathari's translation device made a sound that might have been a groan. The Council will need to be informed immediately. Though I confess I am uncertain how to explain that humanity has not only violated the laws of dimensional physics, but has done so through an accidental beverage spill. If it helps, Dr. Patel offered, you can tell them we're already drafting comprehensive interdimensional diplomatic protocols. We've had first contact procedures ready for this scenario for years. You prepared for accidental contact with parallel universes? Cathari asked incredulously. Ambassador, Sarah said with a small smile. We prepare for everything. It's another one of humanity's quirks. We love to imagine what-if scenarios, no matter how improbable they might seem. And now? The ambassador asked, though their tone suggested they already dreaded the answer. Sarah's smile widened. Now we do what humanity does best. We explore, we learn, and we make friends across dimensional boundaries. And maybe, just maybe, we figure out if parallel universe coffee tastes better than ours. As if on cue, Jerry from maintenance chose that moment to walk into the command center with a fresh cup of coffee, took one look at the interdimensional portal displayed on the screens, and simply said, "Oops." Sarah couldn't help but laugh. Some things, it seemed, were constant across all universes. Humanity's ability to accidentally revolutionize science, our insatiable curiosity, and our absolute dependence on caffeinated beverages. As the command center buzzed with activity, scientists exchanging data across dimensions, diplomats drafting unprecedented interdimensional treaties, and maintenance staff carefully keeping their beverages away from any sensitive equipment, Sarah couldn't help but think that this was exactly the kind of impossible situation humans thrived in. After all, they'd already proven they could outthink one interstellar civilization. Why not add a few parallel universes to the mix? The Geneva Interdimensional Conference Room, hastily renamed from Break Room B just hours earlier, presented a unique challenge in diplomatic seating arrangements. How exactly does one arrange a meeting space when half the participants are alternate versions of the other half? Sarah had solved this by suggesting a simple round table setup. Currently, she found herself staring at her parallel universe counterpart, who had apparently chosen to join the Earth Defense Force Navy instead of the Army. The sight of herself in a different uniform was disconcerting enough. The fact that her alternate self seemed to prefer tea to coffee was downright unsettling. So, Navy Sarah said, setting down her cup of Earl Grey, I suppose we should address the elephant in the room. You mean the fact that our respective humanities managed to crack interdimensional travel through spilled beverages? Army Sarah replied. Or the fact that your uniform's rank insignia is on the wrong side? Both, actually. Though I maintain that tea is the superior catalyst for quantum phenomena. Dr. Wong, their universe's version, cleared his throat. If we could focus on the scientific implications, our preliminary data exchange suggests that our universes diverged approximately 300 years ago, primarily due to differences in the development and spread of tea and coffee cultures. Fascinating, isn't it? His counterpart added, adjusting glasses that were square instead of round. A simple preference in caffeinated beverages led to subtly different approaches in theoretical physics, which in turn resulted in your concordat and our cooperative. Ambassador Cathari, who had insisted on attending despite the lack of a parallel universe counterpart, their species apparently never evolved in the other universe, was emitting confused light patterns. You mean to tell me that the fundamental difference between your realities is based on human beverage preferences? Oh, it goes deeper than that, Dr. Patel interjected. She had been comparing historical records with her alternate self, both of them surrounded by holographic displays showing divergent timelines. The coffee-dominant culture in our universe led to more rapid industrialization in certain regions, while their tea-dominant culture resulted in different patterns of technological development. We developed quantum mechanics through particle acceleration. They discovered it through wave harmonics. Same destination, they finished, again in perfect sync. This is deeply unsettling, Ambassador Cathari commented. You should see the parallel universe where they primarily drink hot chocolate. A new voice added. Everyone turned to see Elena Martinez entering the room, followed by her counterpart. We've detected at least 15 stable quantum resonances now, each linked to a universe with slightly different beverage-based technological development. 15? Cathari's crystal structure briefly flickered in what might have been fear. You mean there are 15 versions of humanity we must now contend with? Actually, all four scientists said simultaneously, causing both Sarahs to roll their eyes. We've only scratched the surface. Elena Prime, as she'd taken to calling herself, pulled up a holographic display showing a complex web of interconnected realities. Each universe appears to have developed its own unique approach to solving supposedly impossible problems. The hot chocolate universe, for instance, developed faster-than-light travel through what they call thermal quantum tunneling. And the universe where they primarily drink various fruit smoothies, her counterpart added, somehow managed to achieve technological singularity through creative applications of blender mechanics. The energy drink universe is concerning, both Elenas admitted. Ambassador Cathari's translation device made us sound suspiciously like a whimper. The Concordat Council will need to be informed of these developments. Oh, we're way ahead of you, Army Sarah said with a grin. We've already drafted a proposal for an inter-universal scientific exchange program. Think of it, hundreds of different human civilizations, each with their own unique solutions to the universe's greatest mysteries, all sharing knowledge and resources. The potential for technological advancement is staggering, Navy Sarah agreed. Though we might want to hold off on including the energy drink universe until they've calmed down a bit. Last we checked, they were trying to achieve time travel through what they called extreme sports physics. Speaking of exchanges, Dr. Wong Prime said, we've been getting some interesting requests from other universes. The Kombucha universe wants to know if we'd be interested in their organic approach to quantum computing, and the Boba Tea universe has some fascinating theories about using tapioca pearls as a model for string theory. Cathari's crystalline form had begun to emit a high-pitched frequency that the translators weren't even attempting to interpret. Ambassador, Army Sarah said kindly, perhaps you'd like to take a break. Process all this information over a nice beverage of your choice? I believe I need to lie down, the ambassador managed, before quickly excusing themselves from the room. As the door closed behind the retreating alien diplomat, both Sarahs turned to their respective teams with identical expressions of amusement. Well, Army Sarah said, I suppose we should start drafting those interdimensional cooperation protocols. Already on it, both Dr. Patels responded, their tablets synchronizing across dimensional boundaries, though we might want to establish some guidelines about beverage handling near sensitive equipment. Agreed, everyone said simultaneously. Just then, Jerry from maintenance walked in. Sorry, they said in unison. Wrong room. As the doors closed behind the triple Jerrys, both Sarahs shared a look that spoke volumes about the interesting times ahead. One universe's worth of humanity had been enough to turn the galactic political structure on its head. Now they had potentially unlimited versions of humanity to work with, each with their own unique approach to impossible problems. The galaxy would never be the same. Though privately, Army Sarah had to admit, she was curious about that hot chocolate universe's approach to FTL travel. After all, who wouldn't want to try faster-than-light hot chocolate? 1 month into what historians would later call the Great Convergence, Sarah found herself dealing with what could only be described as an interdimensional scheduling nightmare. The newly established Multiversal Coordination Center, formerly the Geneva Facilities Cafeteria, was hosting its first major scientific summit, and managing the logistics of multiple universes' worth of humanity was proving to be interesting. Let me get this straight, she said, reviewing the latest update from the coordination team. The Smoothie Universe's delegation wants to reschedule their presentation on gravitational wave surfing, because it conflicts with the Bubble Tea Universe's demonstration of quantum pearl fusion. Actually, Dr. Wong replied, not looking up from his tablet where he was simultaneously coordinating with 6 different versions of himself. They want to combine their presentations. Apparently they've discovered some interesting overlaps in their methodologies. Of course they have, Sarah muttered, taking a long sip of her coffee, which, she had to admit, did taste better after being quantum harmonized with beans from 3 parallel universes. Any other surprises I should know about? Well, Dr. Patel said, entering the room with an impressively thick stack of diplomatic papers. The energy drink universe has finally agreed to join the conference. They've promised to tone down their extreme physics experiments after that incident with the skateboarding quantum tunnel. Don't remind me, Sarah groaned. We're still finding temporal anomalies in the parking garage. Security had to put up signs warning people not to park their cars in last Tuesday. The room's hollow projector suddenly flickered to life, displaying multiple versions of Elena Martinez. each one somehow distinguishable by their slightly different approaches to lab coat customization. "Good news and bad news," they announced in an almost synchronized chorus that was both impressive and slightly unnerving. "Bad news first," Sarah said, having learned that it was best to get the interdimensional disasters out of the way early. The hot chocolate universe's attempt to combine their thermal quantum tunneling with the coffee universe's space-time compression has resulted in what they're calling a mocha paradox. The Elena wearing the lab coat with fractal patterns explained. "Do I want to know?" Sarah asked. "Probably not," all the Elenas replied. "But the good news is that we've successfully mapped out the quantum resonance patterns between 17 more parallel universes, each with their own unique approach to supposedly impossible physics." "Let me guess," Sarah said. "More beverage-based technological revolutions?" "Not entirely," said the Elena, whose lab coat seemed to be changing colors in response to quantum fluctuations. "We've found universes where humanity developed advanced technology through all sorts of unexpected means. There's one where they achieved faster-than-light travel through innovative applications of soup thermodynamics." "Soup," Sarah repeated flatly. "Apparently, their physicists got really interested in the fluid dynamics of noodles in broth," another Elena explained. "Led to some breakthrough discoveries in spatial folding theory." Before Sarah could process this new information, Ambassador Cathari materialized in the room. They'd finally figured out quantum teleportation after studying the combined research of 12 different human civilizations. "General Chen," the ambassador's crystalline form pulsed with what Sarah had learned to recognize as barely contained existential panic. "The Concordat Council requires your immediate attention. It seems that several member species have begun requesting access to various human beverage technologies, citing cultural exchange programs." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "They want to study our drinks?" "They believe," Cathari's translation device managed to convey both resignation and amusement, "that if human beverages are capable of catalyzing interdimensional breakthrough, perhaps they hold the key to other technological advancements." "To be fair," Dr. Wong interjected, "they're not entirely wrong. The combined coffee-tea resonance experiments have yielded some fascinating insights into quantum field manipulation. And don't get me started on what happened when the green tea universe shared their photon meditation techniques with the espresso universe's particle acceleration team." "Speaking of unexpected combinations," Dr. Patel added, "the boba tea universe's string theory experts want to collaborate with the soup universe's noodle dynamics department. Something about unified field theory through studying quantum gastronomy." Sarah took a moment to massage her temples. "So what you're telling me is that not only has humanity accidentally created an interdimensional scientific revolution, but now we're going to have to deal with multiple alien civilizations trying to reverse engineer our beverages?" "It gets better," all the Elenas said simultaneously. "The smoothie universe just successfully transmitted a strawberry-banana quantum signature across dimensional boundaries. They're calling it the first step toward flavor entanglement." "Fascinating," Cathari admitted, their crystalline structure briefly displaying patterns that suggested genuine scientific curiosity. "Though I must ask, does everything humans do eventually lead to breaking fundamental laws of reality?" "Not everything," Sarah said with a small smile. "Sometimes we just bend them a little. Speaking of which," she turned back to the multiple Elenas, "you mentioned 17 new universes? Tell me about the others." "Well," the Elena in the quantum color-changing lab coat began, "there's this one universe where they developed technological singularity through competitive baking." As Sarah listened to the increasingly improbable list of parallel human achievements, she couldn't help but wonder what the Concordat had really expected when they first tried to limit humanity's technological development. The holoprojector suddenly displayed a new alert. The hot chocolate universe had successfully stabilized their mocha paradox, and in the process had accidentally discovered what they were calling temporal foam dynamics. Sarah reached for her quantum-harmonized coffee. Something told her this was going to be another interesting day in the ongoing saga of humanity's relationship with the impossible. "To be continued,"